friends, it's Skye King here to bring you a little more rebel optimism. Today we're stepping back into Victorian London. And no, it's not a literature lesson, it's a leadership one. Because it turns out Charles Dickens understood burnout, emotional disconnection, and the psychology of leadership long before we had the language for it. And part of why this whole Victorian lens speaks to me and why I love the Dickens Fair here in San Francisco is because I actually played Nancy in a musical production of Oliver when I was younger. It was the first time I felt the emotional power of these old stories, and also when I fell in love with corsets, which is a story for another day. Nancy taught me resilience and loyalty and courage, and those themes still shape how I think about leadership today. Before we dive in and I share 3 micro skills to help you lead with more kindness, hit subscribe if you care about leadership, emotional intelligence, burnout recovery, or building more human-centered workplaces. A whole series is coming your way that I think you're gonna love. A lot of modern workplaces still operate like Victorian factories, fast, rigid, output obsessed at the cost of well-being and health of employees. And leaders can end up acting a lot like Ebenezer Scrooge. Not necessarily because they're mean, but because systems are trapping them in survival mode. Overwhelmed, under-resourced, disconnected. The truth is, people like Scrooge, aren't mean. He was dysregulated, lonely, disconnected from purpose. And I'm wondering if this sounds like anyone else in your organization. Maybe it sounds like you. Dickens also understood this deeper truth that niceness doesn't equal kindness. In Victorian society, people were trained to be nice, not necessarily kind. Niceness avoids discomfort, where kindness embraces truth. Niceness smooths things over, where kindness helps people grow. Niceness is often a coping mechanism, a mask for burnout or fear or avoiding conflict. I've been really intrigued by what the elements of leadership are. So I recently had an opportunity to attend a workshop, a panel on kindness and leadership at UC Berkeley. And what was really compelling was that every expert that was on that panel said the same thing, that real kindness is about clarity, honesty, presence, and emotional intelligence. It's not about politeness, it's not perfection, it's just having that trust with care. And that's exactly what leadership requires today. Let's confront this directly. Some people think kindness makes leaders soft, or that kind leaders finish last. And thankfully, the data actually says the opposite. Researchers studied 3,500 CEOs, and companies led by pro-social and kind leaders were more profitable, more trusted, had more stability during crisis, lower turnover, higher customer satisfaction. And one of my favorites was a panelist said, they're less likely to cook the books. So they may be more honest in their financial reporting. So kindness isn't the opposite of performance. Kindness is a performance accelerant. People work for leaders they feel safe with, not leaders they fear. Let's channel Dickens for a moment. So if the ghosts of burnout past floated into your organization today, what would it show? Teams exhausted and shutting down, leaders snapping because their nervous systems are fried, high performers quietly disappearing, everyone moving fast but connecting with no one. This ghost isn't here to punish us, it's here to tell the truth. Burnout turns good humans into reactive versions of themselves, not because they don't care, but because exhaustion hijacks the nervous system. And in A Christmas Carol, Scrooge's ghosts were basically like early coaches. Ghosts of burnout past, telling us and showing us patterns we might be repeating. Ghosts of dysregulation present, where we're connected to what's happening in the here and now and what's influencing our behavior today. Ghosts of leadership potential yet to come. This is about, the sort of leadership we want to have, the sort of leader we want to be in the future. And these aren't supernatural visitors. These are internal alarms that are telling leaders something must change. Here's the part the rebel optimist in me loves. At the Dickens Fair, everything slows down. You look people in the eye, you notice textures and warmth and laughter. Someone I was with talked about how kind everyone was and that people were helping each other out. And humanity really becomes visible again in those sorts of collaborative cultures. And in our workplaces, tiny acts of micro-kindness can do the same. Taking one breath before a meeting, resetting after a tough discussion, learning someone's name and what matters to them, preparing thoughtfully before you're meeting with them, respecting their time, sharing public credit for those who might be collaborating with you, and then also taking responsibility if things go wrong. So these things might seem small, but they are powerful culture disruptors. So how do we stop leading like Victorian factory bosses? Here are 3 ways, 3 micro skills that can help you light the way. The 60-second reset. Take one breath between meetings to breathe and regulate. A slow exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system and shifts you out of survival mode. You can't lead with kindness if your nervous system is sprinting. The I see you moment. Ask a human question. Where did you last laugh? What's bringing you joy this week? These questions switch the brain from vigilance to connection, and positive emotions trigger dopamine and oxytocin, which can lower social threat and increase trust. And research shows that meaningful relationships at work boost our motivation, engagement, and retention. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Don't just praise outcomes, praise courage, effort, curiosity. Harvard's progress principle shows us that feeling progress is the #1 driver of motivation. Perfectionism burns people out, progress keeps them moving. Kindness isn't grand gestures. It's these tiny lanterns that leaders light every day for their teams. So now I want you to think of one person who went above and beyond for you this week. Who's your Tiny Tim, your Nancy, your Fezziwig? And I want you to send them a message right now. I saw what you did and it mattered. Thank you for thinking of me. Appreciate your kindness today, whatever that message is. I know Dickens would approve and neuroscience would too. If you're feeling burned out, overwhelmed, or disconnected, you're not alone. Most leaders today are just carrying more than any nervous system was designed for, but you don't have to stay in that state. Kindness begins with regulation, with connection, with micro skills, and a willingness to rewrite the story just like Scrooge did. Here's one thing I want you to take with you. Kindness doesn't slow you down as a leader, it stabilizes you. And stable leaders create cultures people want to work in. So if you want to go deeper, check out the upcoming workshops on resetting after burnout, kindness-based leadership at geodelifeworks.com. And thank you for wandering through Dickens with me today. And as always, you've got this.